I call into session this meeting with Norwich City Council. The time is 7:46. Welcome to this full meeting of the full council. I have a couple of practical issues to highlight. We have no fire drill planned for tonight, so if there is a fire alarm, please make your way out of the building in a calm and orderly fashion, as guided by staff, and going down the main staircase, now through the main exit onto St Peter Street or Pleasant Street. People with mobility issues should gather in the foyer on the left-hand side as you leave the chamber. Use of the balustrade where assistance will be provided. Toilets are at the far end of the corridors on either side of the chamber. Ladies to your left, as you leave, and gents to your right. I ask that if you need to leave and return to the council chamber during the meeting, please ensure that the doors do not slam after you and refrain from talking to another person when speaking. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed on the council's YouTube channel and will be capable of repeat viewing. Item 1, apologies.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Apologies for absence have been received from councillors Davis, Stupley, Price and Packer.
Are there any other apologies that need noting? Councillor Huntley and Councillor Thomas. Item 2, declarations of interest. Should be noted that the monitoring officer has granted a dispensation to councillors who have requested one without interest in item 7A, motion on the investment of the Norfolk Pension Fund. This disposition granted allows them to take part in the item when it is considered. Are there any other declarations of interest? Councillor Stewart.
Yes, Lord Mayor, I do have a peculiar interest in item 7E with reference to the Bright Future project with whom I work in my other work outside of the Norwich City Council.
Thank you very much. Councillor James Wright.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I have been granted a dispensation by the Monitoring Office for item 7A, because I'm a member of the Norfolk Pension Fund.
Thank you very much. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Carrington.
Thank you. I've also been granted a dispensation for motion 7A.
Thank you very much. Lord Mayor, announcements. Oh, sorry. Councillor Stoddart, sorry.
Yeah, I need to declare non-pecuniary interest on sign item 7D, as I am the chair of future projects.
Thank you very much. Any other declarations? No, I don't see any. Thank you very much. Item 3, Lord Mayor's announcements. It was a great honour at the mayor-making meeting to have my 3 children present here. And can I say on their behalf how friendly both Labour and opposition councillors were to them. As they said, they were amazed how much I seem to have achieved in 9 years. As my daughter, Mr. Lady Mary, said, we all thought you were an idiot. Obviously, the EDP missed that scoop of putting on the front page of the papers for the last 9 years. The City Council funds run by an idiot. Can I say one further thing? On this Saturday, we have the Mile Cross Festival. Not only will I and the Lady Mayoress be attending, but so will the Sheriff and his lady. But also, I hope as many as you can. I've been to this before, and it's a very fun event. So please do come. Item 4, minutes. Minutes from the meeting held on... Oh, sorry. I must say, further to my previous statement, further to this, I'll be moving item 8 on the agenda ahead of motions, as there is only an item noting. Item 4, minutes. The minutes from the meeting held on the 18th of March and the annual council meeting on the 20th of March of both of 2025 are before the council for confirmation. Are there any points of accuracy that need to be raised by members? Can I ask Councillor Stoner to propose?
Formally proposed, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Cat to second.
Formally seconded.
We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Against? Abstentions? No. That seems to be unanimous. Those minutes are confirmed and will be signed at the end of the meeting. No petitions, and we now go on to item 5, public questions and petitions. No petitions have been received, but we do have 5 public questions. Could I have Marlow North to ask their question to Councillor Paddock, Cabinet Member for Equalities and Social Justice?
Thank you. In 2022, this council passed a motion on supporting the transgender community with the unanimous support of all councillors at the time. The motion stated that the council would affirm the legal rights of trans people under the Equality Act 2010. Given the April 2025 Supreme Court ruling on this same act, many binary trans people are anticipating being excluded from spaces, and many non-binary are anticipating removal of what little public recognition and dignity we had, such as the neutral honorific on forums which the council promised in 2022. Norwich comes behind only London and Oxford in terms of proportion of residents who are trans. Can the council reassure and inform us with regard to any changes which may be taking place as a result of this ruling in services it runs?
Thank you very much. Would Councillor Paddock like to give your reply?
Yes, thank you for your question. The council recognises the concerns this ruling has raised, particularly among transgender and non-binary residents in service users. We remain firmly committed to upholding the rights and dignity of all individuals, including transgender and non-binary people, and 2 principles set out in 2022 motion passed unanimously in support of the transgender community. That motion affirmed both the rights of transgender and non-binary people and our shared aspiration for Norwich to be a safe and inclusive city for all. At present, no changes have been made to council services or forms as a result of the ruling. We are waiting for formal guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, which is expected to clarify how public bodies should interpret and apply the decision. Once this guidance is received and reviewed, the council will assess whether any changes are necessary to ensure legal compliance while continuing to support all protected groups under the Equality Act. We want to reassure residents that any future changes will be approached with care and transparency. Equality impact assessments will be used to consider the effects of any proposed changes on all protected groups, including transgender and non-binary people. Our aim is to ensure that all response to legal developments reflect our ongoing commitment to fairness, respect and inclusion. We also understand the importance of visibility and recognition, including the availability of gender-neutral options on forms. These matters will be considered thoughtfully as part of any future review and in careful consideration of both impacted.
The questioner, you have allowed to ask 1 supplementary question. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, yes. In the same motion, the council promised to look at creating a dedicated page on the council website for the purpose of signposting trans people to support services. The need for these services is especially great in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling, with the increased level of fear, abuse and isolation that trans people are experiencing. This page, promised 3 years ago, does not exist. Additionally, the council promised to provide the option of a gender-neutral honorific, such as next on all its forms. When I recently moved and signed up for council tax at my new address, the best thing available to me was other. I'm not an other, and I find it both deeply discouraging and personally painful that this council still sees me as such. Again, 3 years, nothing. And these are the easiest parts of the motion to implement. What message can this send? It's no wonder the Labour banner has been banned from Norwich Pride. Assuming this administration wants to redeem itself, this would be a good place to start. How much longer are trans residents like me going to be kept waiting for these 3-year-old promises to be acted on?
Councillor Paddock, can you give your reply?
Yes, thank you for your supplementary. Yes, I hear you. This is a complex issue, and more importantly, there are a lot of people hurt, including yourself, by this ruling and our action today on this. I would like to handle this issue with empathy, cognizant of any group impacted. There is a lot of work being done in the background, and I recognise there is a lot more we can do. I'll be in a better position to talk more on this issue in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Now move to question 2. Could I please ask Joseph to ask the question to Councillor Hampton, Deputy Leader and Council Member for the Climate and Environment?
Thank you. I previously asked if allotments are self-funding through rents or if they are subsidised. Thank you for your response to that, although I'm not sure of the exact answer. Despite very good work from the allotment administrator and the allotment officer, there's still a high vacancy rate and a long waiting list, nearly 5 years on some sites. Tenants are having to spend a lot of time and money to fence their plots individually because the main fences are inadequate to keep deer out. Rents are considerably higher than surrounding parish allotments, but Norwich City Council has planned a 7.5% increase for next year. This is well above inflation and has not been discussed with tenants, only announced as an addendum on invoices. If we are not sure whether rents cover the cost of maintaining the allotment sites, how is this increase decided?
Councillor Hampton, if you would give your reply.
Thank you very much for your question. The rent increase for this year is in line with the increases with other fees and charges that the council collects. Allotment rents still provide extra value for money for the benefits we provide for allotment holders. The allotments team is working hard to address the issues raised. For example, we will be holding letting days on each site to assist with the reduction of waiting lists. There's been one every week in June and more planned in the next few months.
The questioner is allowed to ask one supplementary question. Do you have a supplementary question?
No.
Thank you very much for your question. I believe the question number 3 is not here, so can I ask Mr. Carmichael to read out the question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So this question comes from Bethany Richard, who was unable to be here today, and is to Councillor Hampton. Given the increasing danger caused by sharp grass seeds, foxtails left behind during grass bird cutting in NR3, which have resulted in serious injuries to dogs, including eye removal and internal injuries, what immediate steps will the council take to remove invasive grasses and ensure all bird cuttings are collected to prevent reseeding and reduce harm to animals and residents? Just to note, Lord Mayor, as well, so there'll be no supplementary question.
Councillor Hampton, can you give your reply?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. There are 2 varieties of foxtail grass that are native to the UK, meadow foxtail and marsh foxtail. There are 2 other species, foxtail barley and green foxtail, that are not native, but are not classified as invasive. The council does treat its land for giant hogweed and Japanese knotweed, as these are legally defined as invasive species. For these reasons, we do not treat our land specifically for foxtail, as it is grass. If we wanted to remove it, we would need to spray all the areas affected with herbicide, which we would not consider. The most effective way of controlling the spread of foxtail is to regularly mow areas where it grows. The City Council does this on the vast majority of its parks and open spaces, and whilst we appreciate the concerns of dog owners regarding this issue, the most effective way to prevent injury to dogs is to prevent them from going into these areas. And this response provided relates to the areas maintained by the City Council, the County Council, which maintains most of the grass roads in the city, may have a different approach to addressing this issue.
Thank you very much for this. Can I ask James, to ask a question to Councillor Hampton, Deputy Leader and Committee for Climate Environment.
Good evening, thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillors may be aware of the collapse of a tree branch into the road on the avenues on Sunday, June 1st, damaging private vehicles and leading to the road being cordoned off by police. I happened to be walking by on that morning, got to talking to several people who live on the road. They mentioned that they had communicated their worries about the health and maintenance of these trees many times over a period of years to the council and councillors. But in the last decade, engagement with these complaints has dried up. So could the Cabinet member please let me know how many reports about health and maintenance of trees on the avenues have been received in the last 3 years from members of the public and councillors, and how many of these were passed on to the relevant authority at Norfolk County Council?
Councillor Hampton to reply.
Thank you, as ever, for your question. And as you indicate, maintenance of trees in the avenues is a responsibility of the County Council. As such, we have no records of any reports to us over the last few years regarding the health and maintenance of these trees.
The questioner is allowed to ask one supplementary question.
Yeah, I will. Well, I'm so disappointed by that, because whilst I accept that it is the county council that maintains them, we do have city councillors in the university wards, yourself one of them, who have email addresses and have letter addresses who can receive reports. And it would be good to know if in your own communication you have received any complaints that you could have then passed on to the county council. But my supplementary is on a different question. After some subsequent communication with people on the avenues, I have learned, allegedly of course, that apparently it took over a week for the city council to come and make amends to the properties in which they have tenants that were damaged by the incident on the avenues.
Lord Mayor, this isn't a supplementary question to the original one asked.
It's damage caused by these
I'm sorry, that's not relevant. And thank you for your question.
Lord Mayor, can I quickly address
Yes,
the comments
certainly.
that were a bit more relevant made ahead? I would once again like to stress that this is a county council issue to maintain the trees on the avenues. It has been really disappointing that here and more widely in your correspondence to residents in that area, you have tried to muddy the waters and complain just by saying the council generically in your communications. I think the responsible thing to do is to be clear with residents. It is a county council issue, so any concerns, especially considering these are health and safety concerns, are dealt with efficiently and promptly. As with the correspondence we have, I take a very similar approach. I will signpost residents to where they do need to be reporting these concerns. I will involve my county councillor colleague, and he can help provide further support. Yes, obviously we get concerns fielded our way from residents, but that is a responsible thing to do, especially as you say, this is a serious issue, and people do understandably have concerns about health and safety, their property, things that could get damaged. So I think we owe it to residents to be accurate and truthful about where the responsibility lies for this.
Thank you for your question. Could I please ask Peter Smith to ask their question to Councillor Hampton, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Climate and Environment? Would you like to read your question?
A motion is before Norwich City Council to approve Cowtail Dippers application for designated swimming status. In 2024, we received endorsement from all the river users, such as the Sea Scouts, Norwich School, Eagle Canoe Club, and we have been assisted by Anglia Water. The Great Hospital of the landowners and forwarded their application to their Board of Trustees, which they approved. DEFRA, on the 13th of May, released their new criteria. To proceed with their application will require the council's approval. Given the facts mentioned and the motion before you tonight, can Norwich City Council approve the motion submitted?
Ms. Hampton will respond.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question and for outlining some background to the Cowtail Dippers application for designated swimming status, and generally it's clearly been a strong champion for this cause. As you said, the motion of this is to be considered later this evening. I'm unable to state at this point whether the council will adopt it or not. That's up for the members to decide in due course, and it would be appropriate for me at this stage to predetermine any debate that might happen. But I really look forward to picking up this matter then. Thank you for your contribution and to you and colleagues for being here tonight.
Ms. Smith, you are allowed to ask one supplementary question.
Yes, I do wear a hearing aid, so I didn't pick all of that up, but I will just pass on the application before the council is to promote safe swimming by additional water testing. Do people swim in the winter and have done for generations? Does the council want to protect bathers, the environment, and promote the greater use of one of the city's greater assets? That's the River Winton runs through the heart of our city.
Councillor Hampton to respond.
I think the short answer is yes, and not to predetermine again anything we might get into later, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. We do want to see the river used in that way that we also do want to see that risk assessment mitigation to make sure it's safe for everyone to be able to do so. But thank you again for being here with your questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Lord Mayor, and that's also the Admiral of Windsor. There are 27 questions from members of this council to cabinet members, of which notice has been given in accordance with provision 3 of Part 3 of the Constitution. A copy will be available on the council's website. Members who have asked questions are permitted to ask a supplementary question to the cabinet member, but I stress one question and it must be relevant to the original question. Councillor Maguire on question 1. Do you have a supplementary question? Yes, Lord Mayor, I do. Can I ask whether the cabinet member shares my concerns that some councillors, particularly those from the Green Group, appear to be misusing the freedom of information process for political purposes, rather than using the proper internal channels available to us as elected members, such as the members' inquiry system? We recently submitted an FOI simply to understand how many FOIs Green councillors had launched, and we were told that retrieving the information would exceed the legal limit of 18 hours of officer time. I ask the cabinet member, doesn't this suggest an excessive and inappropriate use of the system? Councillor Harper to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think he raises a valid concern, and I think it is something that we should be interested in. The FOI Act is obviously an essential tool for ensuring transparency and public accountability, but it shouldn't be used by elected members as a substitute for the internal mechanisms we have available to us. Mechanisms specifically designed to provide timely and appropriate responses to council inquiries. Just as with reporting, fly tipping, there is a very clear form for that on the council website, and it's not actually via the press desk. But if councils are routinely bypassing those channels in favour of FOIs, especially to make political points or to generate headlines, I'm sure no one would be quite so cynical. It places an unnecessary burden on officers and diverts time and resources away from frontline services. And we've heard much from the opposition about agency spend, and I know they hate waste. So the fact that it would take over 18 hours time to determine how many FOIs a single political group has submitted is in itself revealing, and it is quite troubling. And I think it's a timely reminder that we must all use these tools responsibly.
Thank you very much. Councillor to question 2. Councillor Mike Sands, you have a supplementary question.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't have a supplementary question, but I'd like to thank the cabinet member for their response. Thank you.
Question 3, Councillor Humphrey is not here, so there will be no supplementary question. Question 4, Councillor Smith, you have a supplementary question.
No, I do not. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I thank the cabinet member for their response.
You right to question 5, Councillor Susan, you have a supplementary question.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I do. Given the strong level of public interest and engagement in the consultation, does the cabinet member agree that some of the recent criticism of the market refurbishment plans risk talking our city down, especially when we know that there are genuine concerns from traders about the need for investment and modernisation? Isn't it vital that we respond positively to those concerns, maintain this valued city asset and take action to reverse declining footfall, rather than stand still?
Councillor Harper to respond.
Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Sands. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think Norwich market is one of the jewels in our city's crown, but we can't take it for granted. And we've heard directly from traders over a number of years that improvements are needed, whether that's better infrastructure, more flexible trading space, or enhanced facilities for customers. And I think to ignore those voices would be a disservice to the very people that keep the market running and thriving day in and day out. I agree it's disappointing that some of the recent commentary has been more about scoring political points than constructively engaging in the future of one of our most important assets. And I absolutely agree that we should be championing our city and not talking it down. A message which sometimes seems lost on the party opposite. The consultation response and the high levels of engagement just shows just how much the market matters to residents. And I think we've now got an opportunity to take some of that energy, harness it, use it to deliver a scheme that supports our local businesses, attracts more visitors, and helps reinvigorate the city centre. And I think that's ultimately what our consultation is all about.
Thank you very much. Councillor Driver, do you have a supplementary question?
No, will do.
Thank you very much. Question 7, Councillor Law, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Lorraine. I don't. I want to thank the Cabinet Member for their response.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carrington, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Killeen for your response. Anglia Square has a long community history and has been much celebrated for its history through performance and photography in recent years. Will there be any provision for Anglia Square's community to come together once it has been redeveloped?
Thank you for your question. Yes, I'm pleased to report that one of the first buildings to be developed on the site is a village hall. So in fact, we won't have to wait until all of Anglia Square has been developed to wait for that provision.
Thank you very much. Councillor Portman, Carlstadt, do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Backer is not here, so there will not be a supplementary question. Question 11, Councillor Oliver, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Lord Mayor. Yes, thank you. Apologies, I didn't have sight of the response until fairly late before the meeting started. But thank you for your response, Councillor Jones. And I wanted to ask, given the wide-ranging term of social housing, why is it that we don't have our own Norwich version? It seems to me that the response doesn't pin it down. If we just say, well, it's less than market rent, well, that's great. Also, what you say about council rents as well, being set below local housing allowance, and I certainly believe that they're good value, and I'm sure depending on our tenants. However, we don't have something that's clearly defined where we can say this is what we believe social housing should look like, this is what our definition is in Norwich.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jones to respond.
Not totally clear what the question is in that, but I suppose I will answer some of the points raised. We are 100% committed to rents in this city for our housing stock that are less than local housing allowance. And to me, I think that fundamentally defines it in the sense that it is housing that for those who are most in need and are in receipt of housing benefit or equivalent, they will be able to afford to be housed. And that's the crucial thing. It's about housing that meets that really fundamental need, and that's our commitment through and through. And we have to look at affordability of what we build, and it has to be of best value, and we have to ensure we're also reinvesting in our stock. But we must always retain our commitment to keep that rent below local housing allowance. That is crucial, because that means those that need those homes in a safe place always can have one.
Thank you very much. Councillor Catt, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jones, for your answer. I've been asking questions about this since September 2023, and the issue has been active for a long time before that. And every single time I've asked, I've been told that it's coming, and then it doesn't, and then it's coming, and then it doesn't, and it doesn't. So I don't have loads of confidence in the answer, although I do want to thank officers who are working hard on this now, because I do think it is very, very close. But given the uncertainty that has happened for the past couple of years on this, I just want to ask if you commit to a full council briefing on this, just so that everyone is on the same page of how that process is going to be rolled out and what will be communicated to residents.
Thank you very much. Key Cabinet Member would like to respond.
Okay, firstly, This is not a challenge that just we have faced around fire doors. Many other housing providers across the country. It's something that has been a process to get the right person. I accept it's not as quick as I would want it, but it is something that I monitor closely. But I am assured that we have two very high quality providers for installation, and that's the thing. If we're going to, I want to do this right. Also, in terms of delays that are mentioned, we do also have to make sure that we are compliant with legislation. And unfortunately, because there are so many challenges around high-rise buildings, not just for us, but around the country, there is a significant backlog. But I would not want to go ahead with anything without full legal sign-off and ensuring compliance. There's an awful lot of work going on behind the scenes, including testing of doors, to ensure that these are of the highest standard. In terms of what I'll commit to, I'm actually hoping to provide a monthly update on this and other housing issues going forward, and because I think it shouldn't mean that actually we're discussing these at this forum. I'm looking forward to actually the day that we can acknowledge some of the amazing work that is done by so many officers in so many other areas across the housing team who have committed to a real change and a real improvement programme. And there are so many things that I think they're working incredibly hard on. I know you attended the damp and mould briefing. We're going preparing for AHAB's law. You know, there's some significant changes and staff who are so committed to our tenants. And I think I'd just like to acknowledge that amazing work, and also the amazing work that's gone into making sure that actually these doors, I am actually convinced that by taking time we will get this right, and that's the crucial thing. And we've got a schedule of work, and I look forward to updating you monthly on that.
Thank you. Councillor Shamira, do you have a supplementary question?
I do. Thank you very much for the answer that I have received to my initial question. As a city centre councillor, I have received from residents a large number of complaints about excessive noise from tuned up motor vehicles and motorbikes in the city's many city streets. In terms of how residents can report that though, looking at the council's website, there doesn't seem to be an easy way to do so. So I'm asking the cabinet member, will you commit to making sure that residents can report these concerns easily online in a similar way that they can do needles or fly tipping or in such like, please?
Councillor Giles to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Shamira. As set out in my original answer, the primary responsibility for dealing with vehicle noise nuisance lies with the police. I'm happy to come back after the meeting with a more detailed response.
Councillor Galvin, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, I do. Thank you for the answer, Councillor Stono. I'm really glad you recognise the great importance of the River Wensum, and which is so under threat and increasingly under threat. It would be really great if you consider supporting it further by granting it some extra recognition as part of the Wensum strategy. For example, I don't know, extra rights, something like that. A group of, as many councils are currently doing that, including Bristol, where they're having a wonderfully named Rave on the Avon film, which is showing in a couple of weeks. A group of experts are coming together in our city to consider this, and I was going to offer to liaise with them and bring you together with them and look at that further. Would you like? Would that be acceptable?
Councillor Donald to respond.
I'm a little unsure as to exactly what it is that's being proposed, what these experts are coming here to do. So I'm willing to, if it's permissible under the Constitution, ask Councillor Galvin to clarify.
Yes, can you take that up after the meeting, please?
We'll take it up after the meeting. I'm a little confused.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Calvert, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I do. The public need confidence that their money is being spent wisely, transparently, and without waste. Last year, nearly £6 million was spent with employment agencies. A figure, by the way, that was only obtainable via freedom of information following the intervention of the regulator due to the unlawful failure of this council to comply with transparency laws. This year, the council was another £3.8 million over budget due to the use of agencies. With such extraordinary spending happening right across council departments, what would you say to reassure Norwich residents that their money is safe in the hands of this Labour administration?
Councillor Padilla to respond.
Thank you very much for your question. I've also pointed out, we're continuing to work on improving on those figures, and it isn't a sticking plaster approach. It's an approach we'd like to think carefully over the coming months. But there appears to be more behind that question, so I will happily talk to you after this at your convenience, and I will look into the issue more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Okenauer, do you have a supplementary question?
I don't, but I would like to thank Councillor Henry for her response. It's great to know that information for residents on the process for installing solar panels will finally be made available on the website. We promised that it's 2023, and so I really hope that it will happen by September as the response suggests. Thank you.
Thank you for not asking a supplementary question. Councillor Stooley is not at the meeting, so there will be no supplementary question. Question 18, Councillor Young, you have a supplementary question.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So it's great to hear that funding sources are being sought to increase biodiversity in the area. If these bids for external funding are not successful, will the council commit to providing their own funding to create new Norwich green spaces to make sure that we don't continue to have a nature desert in the city?
Councillor Hampton to respond.
Thank you for both your questions. We already do contribute some of our own money, but obviously with the budget setting process, the more we can get from externally, the better. That allows us to do more faster, so we will continue to explore all those avenues. And as ever, requests or sort of suggestions for what needs to be considered in the next budget setting round, I'm happy to have discussions beforehand, and you're always welcome to bring your own amendments to the table as well, of course. So,
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you, Lord Mayor. Sorry, my first time here, a bit nervous. So if there is no appetite from registered providers that the council is currently speaking to about the Anglia Square site, will the council promise to undertake the operation of social rent itself, as it has made promises in your campaign literature?
Councillor Harper to respond.
I'm not sure what campaign literature the councillor is referring to, but I think we've been very clear, very consistent, that we want to deliver as much social housing as we can. What we won't ever do is compromise on quality, and we obviously have a duty to use our HRA in a responsible and strategic way. And if you're asking us to write blank cheques that prioritise new housing over existing stock, then that is something we will not do, we will never do. We believe that we have a duty to drive up quality, and we have a duty to build the highest quality social housing possible. So I think be very careful what you're asking for, because if you're saying you want to drive down standards, that is something that this Labour administration will never agree to.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bolton, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for your response, Councillor Jones. It does come as a real concern that there was no live contract in place for the previous financial year, so that solar PV and heat pump budget was significantly underspent, and that there was a major reduced output in delivering vital services for residents to reduce energy bills and meet council climate responsibilities. I very much appreciate seeing the percentage breakdowns that I've now asked for via multiple avenues on this underspend and still not received. Everywhere we look across the council, we see poor contract management and procurement, resulting in a magnitude of different problems. What assurance can we have that this won't be the case again?
Councillor Jones to respond.
Thank you. We're currently going through a new procurement process for major works projects, and looking at over a longer term, it's when we're dealing with something as important as this and our stock in general, and I think following on from words of Councillor Harper, is about investment in our stock, and we have one pot of money and we have to spend it very wisely to get the best return for our tenants. So we've got a new procurement process, and I'm hoping that by planning that work over a longer term, that gives more stability around delivery. But it also is about looking at the best use of that money. So it might not be that at one point spending it, but actually we've got a programme that works that sort of 6 months down the line might be, for example, around a whole house improvement project, but actually installing a heat pump is far better if it's alongside other work. So we actually got to make this work for tenants as well. So there might be peaks and troughs in that delivery, but by getting a new, hopefully two new contractors to work around major capital works in the HRA, we can plan over that long term and have that delivery. But there will still be peaks and troughs because it is about being responsive to our stock and when it comes available to do those works and making sure they work for tenants. So I don't want to cost more, I want to cost less for tenants alongside their environmental benefits. So it needs to be seen as the whole. I wouldn't want it to be looked at as a bolt-on approach. I think we've got to look at each property in its own right.
Much Councillor Champion, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor. With regards to your answer to my question, where I was questioning about the religious festivals, a year and a half ago we launched an initiative about being a city of tolerance. In your response, you make reference to highlighting these on social media, but I can find no references, or very few references, to any of these on social media or on any other sites on the internet. And so I would ask, can we ensure that if we are going to be celebrating religious festivals of different faiths within our city, can we be transparent about this process? And can we have a published schedule of festivals that we're going to be celebrating? And that way the communications team and the social media team would know what they're doing, and we might be able to ensure that we are communicating these events.
Councillor Paget to respond.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Champion. So I have, I'll take that question in a couple of parts. First bit about communicating. I think I've already discussed with officers an opportunity to broaden out communications to include other celebrations, to include, for example, the Sikh community, for example, and the other element I wanted to quickly respond to is that as with engagement with all faith groups, an approach to promote celebration should be considered inclusively with the wishes of those faith groups in mind. So how those faith groups choose to communicate should be steered by them rather than council telling them what to do. But we can look into that. Thank you.
Councillor Fox, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Harper, for your response. And I know that this is something we've also kind of met and had a chat around too. And my question was about social housing, and the answer is about affordable housing. I know that when I became a councillor, I found like some of the planning documents, the council papers, quite difficult to delve into, and like layered answers kind of make things more difficult. So I wonder if Councillor Harper could provide a single percentage for what percentage of social rent will be provided in the the already agreed phases of Anglia Square. So what percentage of social rented homes?
Ms. Harper to respond.
Thank you very much. And you know, I'm grateful to Councillor Fox for her time recently to have a discussion about this. But I mean, we have been really clear that one of the most significant benefits of our acquisition of the Anglia Square site is that we can now deliver far greater level of affordable housing than would have been possible under private ownership. And the truth is that development is complex, and what it's very difficult to deal in absolutes. What we've said is that in the consented phases, we're very proud that we're going to deliver at least 50% of homes at an affordable level. And of those, at least 85 of those are going to be, 85% of those, 85%, before I get this quoted, will be for social rent. And that's something that we know is desperately needed by our residents. But I want to stress that that is a floor rather than the ceiling. We are ambitious at Labour Council. We're committed to driving up the delivery of social housing across our city. It's in our blood. We're never going to stop fighting for it. We're never going to stop fighting for decent and genuinely affordable homes for our residents. But we have to make our development viable. And there is a lot going on in the world that increases uncertainty at the moment. That's not a caveat to say that we're going to do less. I'm just saying that that is the reality of the global situation we are dealing with. We're going to do that 50%. And we're really, really proud of that. And if we can do more, we will. And we'll keep looking at different ways of delivering more social housing, more affordable housing, meeting the needs of our local community. We want to remove the obstacles to getting sites progressed. So I'm being as clear and as certain as it's possible to be. We are not going to settle for anything less than the maximum we can deliver.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kane's not here, so there will be no supplementary question. Councillor Worley, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor. And again, thank you, Councillor Padder, for your response. I actually think that in the context of LGR and the devolution, where our staff are obviously really concerned about their future, and this is obviously a fantastic opportunity for us to really reshape everything about how we work as a local authority. This is the perfect time for us to look at other ways of working. And I know with delight that the Deputy Prime Minister said at the LGA conference last year that a 4-day working week is certainly no threat to the economy and could provide and improve productivity in local government. For my question, I was really pleased to see an article in the EDP in April reporting that Future Projects, which is a fantastic charity in the city who does a lot of vital work, received funding from the City and County Council, and as already mentioned, is chaired by our leader, Councillor Stannard, has introduced a 4-day working week where employees work 80% of their hours for 100% of their pay. So, Councillor Padder, I wonder if you might ask the leader why he feels that staff at Future Projects are worthy of such an arrangement, but officers here at Norwich City Council aren't.
Councillor Padder, to respond.
I think you can ask that question directly to Councillor Stannard.
Happy to do so, I just wasn't sure as I had to respond.
Thank you very much for that. Now, we have actually not gone over the 30-minute limit, so we can have some second questions. Councillor Mike Sands, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No, I don't have a supplementary, but again, I thank the Cabinet member for their response.
Question 26. Councillor Laws, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No, I don't. Again, I'd like to thank the Cabinet member for their response.
Councillor Stewart, please not at the meeting, so there will be no supplementary question. Thank you very much indeed. We have nothing to. As I said earlier, we will now move to item 8, Councillor appointments. Are there any questions regarding the appointments listed under the item 8? These are noting only. Thank you very much. This item is noted, and of course I thank those members for their 24 hours of service. Now, we move to motions. Item 7A. Investment in the...
Sorry, I'd like to read motion 74A under the Constitution that this matter is remitted to Cabinet following debate.
Chair, that's fine, but we need to move and second the motion first before we do that.
I'm just to be clear, I'm reading motion 74A so that there is debate. for it being 74A, so that there is still debate. So
Oh,
there's
right,
still an
okay.
issue to discuss about what we'd like to make clear why we are suggesting this.
So, we'll need a second for that, put that straight to the vote, and then we can go back to the motion.
Can I have a second, Councillor Scott? Thank you very much. Are we moving to the vote?
Yes. Vote on that motion.
Those in favour? Those against? Oh, sorry, I think we might keep your head. Against the
Can we just ask some clarification? So we're moving the motion without notice, which is to move the first item to move it straight to cabinet without debate. But after
Sorry, Mayor. Just realised it wasn't on. So, Councillor Harper has moved a motion without notice, which is moving the item to Cabinet, but with debate first. So we're voting at the moment for the motion without notice to move to Cabinet with debate. And then once that's cleared, we will then ask the proposer to move the actual motion seconded.
As a point of order, Lord Mayor, if the motion hasn't been moved or seconded, so the procedural motion to move it to refer to anyone else can't happen until the motion has been moved and seconded, is my understanding.
We can do it either way, doesn't it? You know, we can move it and second it, and then Councillor Harper. But Councillor Harper has moved a motion now without notice. We have to deal with that on the table, so we need to take a vote on that.
With respect, this isn't the explanation you've given in previous meetings as to the order. The motions must follow, motions without notice must follow motions with notice. But they must be moved and seconded before anything happens.
Okay, well, we can move it and second it and then go back to the motion. That is, we would normally propose and second it, which is what I said. Yeah, straight away.
So we've had votes so far in favour, there were 18 in favour. Those against, please show. That is carried by 18 votes to 16. So we move to the motion of the proposer. The proposer would like to propose the motion.
Can I make a point of order, Lord Mayor? Where did the 18 come from? There are 16 on the administration side and 16 on the opposition.
If you'd like to
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I think I missed myself. If I could please do that again, I apologise. Let's just have a clear on that.
Can I just be clear? I withdraw the motion to Sorry, I don't know. It's a matter with my microphone. Let's be clear that that vote is not valid because it's been counted. But let's go back to proposing the motion and seconding it, and then taking part Councillor Harper's motion to move it to move after the debate to Cabinet. Let's do that one.
I think I would like to speak to the officers after this meeting about this. It sounds like it will be moved to the proposer. Councillor Hoppner.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me okay. Please wave us something if you can't. So this motion asks that we take all the steps that we can take as a participating employer of the Norwich Pension Fund to get the fund to divest from governments and businesses complicit in war crimes and crimes against humanity, and to implement adequate investment screening and due diligence procedures to ensure that no investments are made in governments or businesses complicit in such crimes in the future. Norwich is a proud city of sanctuary with a bold history of standing victims of violence, oppression and occupation. The City Council has often been part of this history and done what it could to show solidarity with civilians under attack. For example, by offering the freedom of the city of Norwich to the beleaguered Ukrainian cities of Lviv and Odessa in 2022, or by passing a motion welcoming Ukrainian refugees in the same year, by flying the Ukrainian flag atop this building since the beginning of the Russian invasion. After the October 7th attack, the City Council building was lit up in the colors of the Ukrainian flag. On other attacks on civilian lives, the Council has remained worryingly silent though, with some residents being made to feel that the lives of their families and friends don't matter to the Council. To date, this Council has remained silent on the terrifying violence and inclusively genocide committed in the occupied Palestinian territory. No honorary titles, no flags, no motions. Today's motion is an opportunity to rectify this and to make it clear that Norwich City Council stands with all victims of violence, oppression and occupation. Of course, as a local council, we have limited leverage over global events, and much of what we can do will remain largely symbolic. However, there is one thing that we can do to make a tangible difference, and that is ensuring that none of our investments, including the investments of the pension fund that we are part of, help finance governments or companies implicated in serious violations of international law. Residents have asked us to do this for some time now. You might remember the petition on divesting from arms, signed by over 400 residents put to this council in March last year. We are mostly in the dark about what the investments of our pension fund help finance. Investments are managed by fund managers and via a shared pool, the exit pool, which makes it harder to scrutinize where the money actually goes. That's why this motion asks for openness and transparency. We do know, though, thanks to the hard work of campaigners who submitted freedom of information requests upon freedom of information requests, that the Norfolk Pension Fund has over 166 million invested in companies directly linked to violations of international law by the current Israeli government. This includes over £500,000 invested in Israeli government bonds and over 12.8 million invested in arms companies supplying the Israeli military. As I said, we don't have the same level of insight into the entanglements of the pension fund with war crimes and crimes against humanity committed elsewhere. We know from research done by the Campaign Against the Arms Trade, though, that arms companies frequently supply states accused of egregious human rights violations. And so the entanglements with the violence in the occupied Palestinian territory are unlikely to be the only problematic investments of this pension fund. What this motion asks for is not merely morally incumbent, it is also very much within the remit of the pension fund. According to authoritative legal sources, including the Law Commission, a Supreme Court ruling, and a legal opinion obtained by the Local Government Pension Scheme Advisory Board in January 2025, pension trustees should not invest in activities which are illegal or which contravene international conventions, and they can divest for ethical reasons if scheme members want that, and if such a decision won't result in financial detriment to the scheme. Pension fund investments are made for the long-term benefit of scheme members and across generations. We have good reason to believe that investing in businesses or governments complicit in serious human rights violations is not actually a good or safe long-term investment, given how instability and uncertainty are likely to affect investment performance. And I am grateful to the Labour Group for highlighting this point when I reached out to them about this motion over the past 2.5 weeks. We haven't got a survey of individual scheme members' opinions on ethical investment, but we do have the viewpoints of relevant trade unions. UNICEF, United Union, and GMP, which represent thousands of local government pension scheme members in the UK, all support the divestment campaign and have called on administrative authorities to ensure members' money does not finance violations of international law. It is essential that members' views are respected in decisions about how their pensions are invested. This is why this motion asks that unions are consulted and member views listened to. Finally, if we as a council are serious about wanting our pension fund to be invested ethically in the long term, clearly we should seek a seat at the table where decisions about the investment strategy are made. Since 2023, Norwich City Council, despite being the second largest council employer within the scheme, has not had, and as far as I can tell, has not sought representation at the Norfolk Pensions Committee. I hope the Labour administration agrees that it is high time to change that and to put forward a representative to be appointed to the committee by the local leadership at the end of July. We should also seize the opportunities offered by local government reorganisation to ensure a more ethical long-term future for the Norfolk Pension Fund by building up our ethical investment expertise now in dialogue with councils and pension committees already further along this path, and by developing a credible case for a future greater Norwich unitary authority to administer that pension fund. To conclude, I hope we can all agree that asking the Norfolk Pension Fund to divest from governments and businesses complicit in war crimes and crimes against humanity is the obviously right thing to do. Councils up and down the country have passed similar motions in recent months, oftentimes proposed and supported by Labour councillors. Over the past 2.5 weeks, I have been reaching out to Councillor Harper as Cabinet Member for Finance and Major Projects in good faith, signalling that I was open to accepting amendments if that could help us secure cross-party support for this motion. No valid amendments have been tabled, so I hope this means that we can all support this motion as it stands, rather than moving it to Cabinet. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Moore needs to second the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I formally second this motion, reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much. No, we go. Now we go to the vote. So we are now voting on Councillor Harper's proposal, which can you explain to the members?
Yeah, so under 70. Get the right. 74A. Yeah, 74A, Councillor Harper's moved that this motion is going to be moved to Cabinet for discussion and we need to take a vote on that. That has been formally proposed and seconded.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor, point of order.
74A requires that the following motions may be moved without notice and after debate will move to a vote. We are now not at the voting stage. Lord Mayor, we are at the point of debating whether Labour wants to shut down the debate. That debate should ensue now.
I think the opponent's not my apologies, yes, of course.
On page 124 of the Constitution, motion 7.74 says the following motions may be moved without notice and after debate will move to the vote. 74A says to refer something to an appropriate body or individual for consideration or reconsideration. This motion is a motion without notice, but it is one that requires debate, Lord Mayor, and that is when we move before we move to
That's right. So we are now going to Lord Mayor. Point of order.
Sorry, Laura, once you've completed this point, I would like to exercise my right to a personal explanation.
Thank you very much. So we move to Councillor Harper, is that correct? Move to debate, so it's Councillor Harper, this is your opportunity.
Thank you. I would just like to challenge the comment that was just made that the Labour group is trying to shut down debate. I emphatically said that I wanted there to be a discussion on this issue. And I'm very grateful to Councillor Hockner for engaging in good faith, and I hope she would agree that I have too. And we've had lengthy exchanges about this issue, but I want to be clear that I emphatically do not want to close down the debate, so I hope you would withdraw those comments.
Do you want to say anything else? Because it's your opportunity to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say thank you. Okay, so I'd like, as I said, I'd like to thank Councillor Hockner who has proposed this motion for the way that she's engaged with us, with me, constructively, respectfully, and in good faith. And I don't doubt for a moment her commitment to human rights, social justice, and nor that is what motivates her and the majority of her group in bringing this motion. And I don't doubt their desire for this council to act responsibly and with moral clarity. What is happening in Gaza is absolutely devastating, and like many here, I've watched with abject horror of what's happened in the past few months, and I have no problem with condemning the actions of the Israeli government. The loss of civilian life, the displacement of families, destruction of homes is heartbreaking, and I absolutely agree with her that we must not look away from that. And I think on sentiment on this, we agree. We share the desire for our investments and good intentions to reflect ethical principles. We support transparency, due diligence, and meaningful ethical oversight. And we absolutely agree that pension funds should not be invested in companies involved in war crimes or crimes against humanity. But despite these shared values, the reason we'd like to move the Section 74A to remit this to Cabinet is because that first and foremost we believe that pension policy must focus on pensions. Norfolk Pension Fund exists to provide retirement security to thousands of workers across our region, and that comes with serious responsibilities, fiduciary duties, legal obligations, and a need to ensure financial sustainability for decades into the future. And of course that doesn't mean that ethics are irrelevant, quite the opposite. The Law Commission and the Supreme Court have made it clear that ethical considerations can and should play a role in investment decisions. Trustees may divest on ethical grounds if they have good reason to think the scheme members will support the decision, and if it's not expected to cause financial harm. So this isn't about whether ethics have a place, they do. It's about how we apply them responsibly within the legal and fiduciary framework within which we operate. And that's where the motion, whilst well-intentioned, becomes problematic for us. We believe the current draft goes beyond the scope of responsible pension policy. It strays into the terrain of foreign policy, an area where we as a local authority have neither power nor expertise. It calls for specific divestment decisions based on foreign affairs context rather than building a consistent, long-term, evidence-based, ethical investment policy. And this approach might feel morally satisfying, and in many ways my heart is with you, but it risks making the Norfolk Pension Fund and the Access Pool simply dismiss our intervention as political, performative, or outside of our arena, and we believe that helps no one. We took a different approach, and we were disappointed that our amendments were not accepted, and we did request that we defer this in order to come up with a consensual position. Our amendments were about...
Fox, just a second, Fox, do we raise the point of order?
No, just
I'd like to raise a point of order, sorry for paying this. The motion we have before us is the motion that notice 74A to move the motion to Cabinet. I welcome Councillor Harper for making the motion in full.
This is actually a substantive motion.
This is about the substantive motion.
Okay, I will draw. Apologies.
Can you give Councillor Harper some extra time?
It would be,
yeah.
I mean,
begin to wind up.
I will begin to wind up. Look, in short, our amendments would have made it harder for the pension committee to ignore us. They would have anchored our position in the right framework, and one that trustees, we believe, would take seriously. We're disappointed that our amendments weren't accepted, and we're disappointed that that we weren't able to reach agreement on timing of this, because we want a pension fund that reflects our values, and we want a system that respects human rights, protects the environment, and acts with integrity.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wright to respond to the Liberal Democrat.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I am slightly confused, because I would only be responding on a substantive motion, whereas I thought we were on the motion about debating. Right, okay, so we're on the substantive. So, can I just move the second 74A, which should then be dealt with debate-wise?
Chair, we are actually on the actual reason why we are moving this to Cabinet. And I realise that there is some crossover, but it is about why we are taking this to Cabinet. Once that debate is over, we put it to the vote and then move back to the substantive motion for debate.
Not even under the it's just a point forward.
It's just to take part in that.
Oh, very good. This is getting so confusing. So, did you want to, Councillor Wright, speak on the Councillor Harper's motion?
I think what I might do, if it's okay with you, Lord Mayor, is quickly weave the starting, because I can probably make it about why I'm against sending this over to Cabinet. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the importance of our pension fund investments and how it can potentially bring about social change. And I recall a similar motion that I brought over a decade ago about tobacco investments, and I think that didn't end well either. This divestment is obviously different, but many of the arguments are the same, and that's why I think it should be debated here today and not sent over to Cabinet. The motion asks us to, the Norfolk Pension Fund to divest in companies and government bodies linked to alleged violations of international law, particularly in relation to Gaza. We recognise the deep concern and moral conviction that underpin the motion. The suffering of civilians in any conflict is a tragedy that demands our attention and compassion, and what we are seeing in Gaza demands that attention in spades. The motion references serious allegations and findings by international bodies, including the International Court of Justice and the United Nations, which deserve careful consideration and debate in this chamber. However, while I do share some of the concerns in the main motion, I don't share all of them, but I am happy that it should be debated in full and voted upon, and I would have voted in favour of the motion. There is a fiduciary duty of pension fund trustees, and as the motion sets out, the 2014 Law Commission guidance and 2020 Supreme Court do indeed allow ethical considerations, but only when they align with the financial interests of scheme members. It's been referenced that the trade unions will be part of the consultation. There are scheme members who are not part of a recognised trade union, so I'd be interested to hear how that would be looked at. The motion assumes that divestments will not result in financial detriment and provides an independent analysis. The data may well be there, but hasn't been evidence for us today. The motion, substantive motion, calls for immediate and sweeping divestment from companies linked to war crimes. It's a powerful moral stance, but I think it does risk oversimplifying supply chains and relationships in defence and technology sectors. The companies listed operate in multiple jurisdictions and serve multiple governments. Determining complexity or complicity is not always straightforward. Israel's Silicon Valley, as it's known, has been responsible for many household names. Traffic mapping Waze is just one example. Now owned by Google, aka Alphabet Inc., should we be asking the fund to divest in products because of the product's origins? Many Silicon Valley firms have strong links to the Israeli Defence Force, even though they themselves do not operate in the defence sector. So thirdly, the other reason why I think this should be debated today is the motion proposes that the City Council proactively advocate for becoming an administrative authority as part of a local organisation. I think it's an extremely important thing, but actually I feel it's, at this stage, tangentially connected bolt-on to this motion. What else? So finally, I'd urge you to caution on how we frame our solidarity. While we must stand against injustice, we must also avoid actions that can be perceived as politically one-sided or risk alienating members of one community or another. Ethical investment must be principled, but also inclusive and legally sound. So I support the spirit of ethical investment transparency, and I would support having the full debate on it today. But I do have some concerns about the motion as drafted. It's too sweeping and too prescriptive, possibly. However, even in the absence of a more balanced proposal, one that includes a full financial impact assessment, broader stakeholder consultation, and a commitment to evidence-based decision-making, I would have still been happy to vote in favour of the substantive motion today, and will therefore be voting against sending it to Cabinet. Thank you.
Councillor Holland, would you like to discuss it? I think we're dealing with Councillor Harper's referral to Cabinet.
Procedural motion, Chair. Yes, briefly, I wanted to highlight that Councillor Harper's been really clear that she welcomes debate and doesn't want to get in the way of debate within the council chamber. So it feels to me that this motion is councillors are trusted to have a debate and not trusted to make the right decision. Otherwise, why would you not want to have a vote in the chamber and have that as a binding vote? Thank you.
Now, Councillor Fox, do you want to speak on this, kind of Harper's much on the substantive motion? Yes.
I'll be really brief. The reason I wanted to speak was it was my understanding that we haven't received amendments to the motion. The amendments were put in after the motion deadline. Perhaps Councillor Hoopner could clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Councillor White for the constructive feedback which could have been taken into account. And so I'd like to speak about my exchange with Councillor Harper. So I shared the motion with her before submitting it to Democratic Services. I made changes in response to concerns she raised verbally when we met to discuss it before submitting it to Democratic Services. I offered to consider further amendments after submitting it. I offered again to consider further amendments. I asked again to receive any proposed amendments, and I didn't receive anything until yesterday night, 7:34 p.m. At that time, well after the deadline for amendments had passed, I basically received a rewritten version of the motion, incidentally with a reference to further dropped. I sought advice from Democratic Services and was told that this was not a permissible amendment and that I would not be able to propose it as a replacement of the original motion, which I would have been open to consider. I was told that the Labour Group had been informed that it was not a permissible amendment last week. In all honesty, I tried everything I could for us to arrive at a motion that we could pass with cross-party support, even if that meant making compromises with some of the wording. I don't think we have time for party political vanities while we are probably witnessing a genocide and while our pension fund is invested in the arms used to commit it. Can you please vote on this motion? Yes.
We will allow to respond at the end, so, but are there any other members?
I'd like to make a personal explanation, please.
All right,
Thank you. I just want to be very clear about the chain of events, because I feel that this has been misrepresented. And unfortunately, I have to highlight the fact that we feel we've had conflicting advice about this, and I wouldn't have done that were effectively. I'm sorry you can't hear. I can't. Okay, I will try and speak closer to the mic. I do feel that my integrity has been impugned somewhat, so I do feel that I need to address this. I did meet with officers to take advice on this and was verbally assured that our motion, that our amendment was competent, and then that advice was rescinded at a later point. I was further advised that the proposer of the amendment was able to amend the motion up until the deadline, which is why we continued to have a dialogue yesterday evening. But the original discussion I had with the officers was well before the deadline, and the changing advice again, occurred well before the deadline. We have email threads to corroborate that. I think that the other option that we proposed was pausing, just taking a breath on this and coming back with something we could genuinely agree on. So I don't actually think we were very far apart. So it's very unfortunate that we're having this discussion.
I think all members are acted honourably. Councillor.
Thank you very much. The first thing to say is I think the Democratic Services team are excellent, and I have no words to say against them. I think they do a fantastic job under difficult circumstances. The second thing I want to say is that the Labour Group, you need to look at yourselves a bit. You don't like free questions. You don't like people asking questions about you. You're happy to criticise that and shut that down. You don't like
Point of order, Lord Mayor. This has nothing whatsoever to do with the matter on the agenda. Or
the agenda right matter is
procedural motion, please.
Yes, the procedural motion is whether to debate, Lord Mayor. I'm criticising the Labour Group for preventing debate and freedom. And I'm also, Lord Mayor, to keep order, please.
Thank you very much.
No, Lord Mayor, I'm asking you to keep order. Sorry.
Can you carry on, but just on the procedural motion, please?
The procedural motion is 74A. It's about whether we are allowed to debate.
That's the case.
Lord Mayor, we need to debate the motion without voting.
So, next debate, we're discussing the procedural motion, and then we will discuss the substantive motion. Is that correct? Thank you very much. So there will be a full debate, so rest assured.
Thank you. The procedural motion is to end the debate. I don't think
it's not. It's not. No, I'm sorry, it is not to end the debate. There will be a debate on the substantive motion.
Okay, to not have a debate and to move it to the cabinet.
Councillor Champion. Please, give me some order, please.
To be honest, this is absolutely appalling. We've got members of the public who come in here today to watch, and I'm actually embarrassed. I'm genuinely embarrassed because this is appalling. This idea that we can have a debate to shut down the debate so then we can pass a motion to Cabinet where they can then make decisions on something because the Cabinet member responsible for this didn't respond in time with their own rules, and no, sorry, if I may, without any interruption, I got told for my motion, which I submitted, 5 o'clock was the deadline for any amendments. I waited for 5 o'clock on yesterday, I didn't get an amendment, that was the deadline. I mean, it's not confusing. And right now, what we're discussing is literally pointless, because we can have all the debates in the world. But if we're debating to shut down the debate, to send the debate to the Cabinet, for them to then discuss, to then do whatever they want, this is an exercise in pointlessness.
Thank you very much. I think we should put the procedural motion to the vote straight away. And considering there was some confusion, I should ask both of these officers by my side to count votes. Those in favour of the procedural motion to refer this to the Cabinet. All those in favour? It needs to be a recount. Those against? Can you keep your hands up, please? It needs to be a recount. 15 noes carried. Thank you very much. Now we go to actually to the substantive debate, not? So there is no question that there not being a substantive debate. Who would you? Now, do we actually go to Councillor Roberts? Let's go to that. Did you wish to say anything more about the substantive motion?
I will just say that we support the substance of the motion, but again, believe the mechanism to be wrong, and we want to form an ethical investment policy that can actually be acted upon. And actually, I think that many of the points that Councillor Wright made are exactly the points that we discussed in our group over the last week or so.
Councillor Wright, let's talk on the substantive motion.
Lord Mayor, I am very confused, unfortunately. It is...
Put your mind at rest. We're discussing now the substantive motion.
I'm very clear on that aspect. What I'm not clear about is how, once now the 74A has been moved and passed, this item should now be a Cabinet with no further debate. That is the way that it has always been in the past.
I am allowing a debate, and that is in my discretion. Councillor Wright, do you wish to comment on the substantive motion? I'm sure members will have heard and comprehended the items that I spoke about on the procedural motion. Thank you very much. Councillor Oliver, on the substantive motion.
I think there's plenty of evidence here, and I would urge Cabinet, when it arrives at Cabinet, to vote in favour of the motion.
Thank you very much. Any other members wish to discuss the substantive motion? Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor. I echo my colleagues' comments. I too am embarrassed by tonight's proceedings, and I apologise to everyone in the public gallery for the display that you've seen this evening. This debate is pointless, absolutely pointless, because once again, a decision about human rights violations, war crimes, crimes against humanity, which are going on this very second we sit here in this room talking, are going to be made by a few political leaders at the top brass. Once again, the people of this council, of this city, have been robbed of an opportunity to have their say on this matter. The tiniest way that we can influence this situation going on is by where we invest our money. It's a teeny tiny drop in the ocean, but that's the way we can make a difference here in Norwich. People out there want this to happen, but they don't get a say anymore because you lot will be deciding on your own by your own methods. This debate is a complete waste of time, and I'm just ashamed, truly, I am ashamed.
Are there any other members who wish to discuss this substantive motion? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Fox on the substantive motion.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when it comes to war crimes, I don't think that ethics can be cherry-picked. That isn't something where we should be worrying about penny pinching. That should be just a line in the sand. So when this comes to Cabinet, I hope you will vote it through unanimously, because every moment that we, like, every little bit of influence that we can have on situations where children are being killed in horrific circumstances, we should do something about that if we can. This is one step, one small thing that we can do about that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gordon McAllister.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Unfortunately, it appears that although understandable tensions are rising high, ultimately we have a situation where the main topic of debate has become whether there's a debate or not. There is in fact a debate happening. The Lord Mayor has discretion to allow the debate or not to allow the debate according to our constitution. The issue here is that ultimately poor advice was received or given by democratic services. I know there's I'm going to debate it regardless. I know there's a disagreement on the other side of the chamber. Ultimately, our constitution hasn't been written well after many amendments. For example, it allows us to move an amendment as a motion without notice. Yet in the same document, just a few paragraphs later, it states that it must be received by 5 o'clock the previous day. So I can draw you to the relevant paragraphs after this meeting. Ultimately, that advice could have been given to Councillor Harper, which clearly wasn't. Otherwise, those amendments would have been put forward and we would have had cross-party agreement. I think the reason I'm highlighting these issues, I want to address Councillor Worley's point that this debate is pointless. Well, your accusation that it's pointless is because the outcome's been decided. But ultimately, we all know how politics works. It's about learning to count. If you learn to count in this room, you'll see that there'll be a majority of one party with the casting vote to be chair, and therefore you can assume which way things may end up going in looking at previous meetings. Now, the reality is that we want to have the debate to ensure that we can actually inform the decisions that Cabinet are taking. That is not a pointless exercise, ultimately. That's something which is important. It is important for everybody's voice to be heard on this. And I hope that we can actually engage on the substantive motion, because as members of the opposition have highlighted, there is a potential genocide happening, and we need to be debating that. And that is something which we do welcome. I do not want to have the focus of this meeting being upon whether this was procedurally the right thing to do or not. We need to debate the motion, and I would encourage everyone to have that debate on the substantive motion.
Councillor Stoddart.
one of the things that I think the public really hate when they see politicians debating is when we get drawn into long procedural debates and procedural wrangles, which I think we've ended up doing rather than concentrating on the issue that we all want to discuss. We started talking much more about process than substantive content, and I think that's very sad. The sad thing is, we came into the chamber tonight and we made it clear that we agree with you. We agree in principle with the spirit of what you are proposing. We want to see an ethical investment policy and we want to see it enacted. We all want to see that. We're all concerned about genocide. We're all concerned about weapons which are used in war crimes. It's really sad that we were so close to a motion that we could have all agreed with. We really were. And I think this batting blame around and getting really angry over it isn't helpful. There clearly have been some misunderstandings. There clearly has been some conflicting advice. I think if we could just accept that both sides have been acting in good faith, and when you're obviously shaking your heads, I think that's really sad, because we really have been. I've been observing this. We were so close to agreement, and I think there's been conflicting advice, a very awkward chain of events, and misunderstandings. It's a shame that we acknowledge that, it's a shame that we can't, and we can't acknowledge that we've been acting honestly in good faith. I find that sad. The other thing is, the motion, and Councillor Wright has put this very well, there are concerns about the motion. The motion needed further work on it. I had concerns about the motion. There needed to be that discussion and those amendments to take account of, as Councillor Harper has said, our legal responsibilities, our judicial duties. And it's not, as Councillor Fox said, about penny pinching. It's actually about our legal responsibilities and our duties to the members of the pension scheme. We've got to balance that against the ethical considerations. And part of that is our judicial duties and our legal responsibilities. That point, actually, about the improvements that could have been made to the motion, Councillor Hoppner has acknowledged it after Councillor Wright spoke. It is acknowledged, actually, that there could have been improvements to the motion. So again, it's disappointing that we weren't able to withdraw it tonight, bring it back to the next meeting and agree there something which we were all agreed on. I think that's very sad, and I hope it's not the politics that being put ahead of making a sound decision. What we do need to do, having had the debate, and again, no one's shut down the debate, everyone's had a chance to speak. This is not about shutting down debate. It's quite interesting that people were debating while saying they were being shut down and they were still talking, which is quite funny to see. What we need to do, having had the debate, is the Cabinet to look at it in the round, and we need to start thinking about a consistent, comprehensive, ethical investment policy. I'll use a cherry-picking word myself now, not cherry-picking little bits, or cherry-picking wars, or cherry-picking conflicts, or cherry-picking different ethnic groups. What we need to be doing is having a comprehensive ethical investment strategy that can be seen to cover consistently and equally all areas of ethical investment. Not cherry-picking, not inconsistent. We could have come really close to that. And as I say, I fear that politics and a desire to be divisive has got in the way of that. But you can trust Cabinet to deal with this appropriately and to ensure that we produce a policy and a way forward which is going to be effective and is going to achieve what we all want to achieve.
Are there any other members who wish to discuss before we go to any other members who wish to, before we move back to Councillor Hockenheim to sum up? I can't see anyone. Councillor Hockenheim, would you like to sum up?
I think I said what I had to say.
Thank you very much.
I hope people will come back to when it comes to cabinet support, and there's other important motions we need to get on to, and hopefully they will be voted on.
Councillor Oliver, you have already spoken. You have already spoken, I'm sorry. It has already been agreed to refer this to Cabinet, so can we therefore move to the next item? 7B, Planning and Infrastructure Bill. I invite Councillor Lubbock to move the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This motion relating to the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, which has the commitment to build 1.5 million homes, deals, amongst other things, with two issues which are very important to councillors, and as such, we should shout out loud and clear if these two issues are not crystal clear in the bill. The first is the oversight of the building of those homes, ensuring that as councillors representing the views of local people, we should ensure that we have a democratic overview of the planning process. The second is the imperative to ensure that what is built is done so in a sustainable way, making sure that we put the environment, nature and wildlife at the heart of everything, so that what we create is a better natural environment than was there before. However, it was on hearing that the bill contained a threat to local democracy and a threat to the environment that I decided to bring this motion to council. The threat to democracy is that the bill allows ministers to impose a national scheme of delegation, allowing the Secretary of State to override local planning committees, rewrite council constitutions and reduce the size of planning committees by ministerial decree, stripping elected councillors of their role in deciding planning applications. I think we all agree that planning works best when it's local, when councillors are empowered and communities heard. We look to our Norwich MPs to ensure that the bill does not undermine local decision making and erode trust in the planning system. So to the environmental threat. This was brought to my attention by the wildlife trusts who, along with the Office of Environmental Protection, that's the government's own watchdog, stated that the bill will cause environmental regression. It weakens the present requirement that a development should deliver a net biodiversity gain. It allows developers of small and medium, that's the majority, to transfer measures to mitigate environmental damage away from the development to a site elsewhere. The bill reduces the protection to the globally rare chalk streams of the Yare and the Wensum. Craig Bennett, Chief Executive of the Wildlife Trust, says, the government's planning and infrastructure bill in its current form fundamentally undermines its commitment to protect nature. Nature does not have a voice, so we must be that voice and send the message that nature is not a blocker to development, it is the very foundation of the economy, society and people's health. I hope we can all join together in passing this motion in speaking up for those precious ideals of democracy and sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask the Secretary, Councillor Ackroyd, to speak?
Formally second and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much. Two amendments have been submitted, one from Councillor Champion and one from Councillor Giles. These have been tabled and we dealt with in the order that they were received. We will first deal with Councillor Champion's amendment. Councillor Lovett, do you accept the proposed amendment of Councillor Champion as laid? No? Is that no?
Sorry, Lord Mayor. Sorry, Lord Mayor, I said no.
No, I didn't hear you, that's my mistake. I therefore call upon Councillor Champion to move his amendment.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Lovett. This is a really important topic and I welcome it to be debated in this chamber. This planning and infrastructure bill will influence our country for generations. And at first glance, the bill does seem promising. You know, that you get housing development, efficient infrastructure, economic growth. It's lots of tick boxes and buzzwords. But when you start looking a bit closer, it really, and they haven't listened to the voice, sorry, of ecologists, of conservationists, of local communities, and they're telling us that there is a real issue with this bill. Part 3 of the bill in particular is a profound threat to nature. And I want to make clear here that I'm not being alarmist when I say this, that it is, this statement is grounded in evidence and science and lived experience. We've been told that environmental laws are barriers to development, that species like bats and crested newts are holding up homes. But a recent review of over 17,000 planning appeals showed that this just isn't true. Bats were involved in only 2.5% of delays, newts less than 1%. The real reason for the delays are under-resourced planning departments and a broken system, not wildlife. Yet this bill is being used as a Trojan horse to gut long-standing legal protections for nature. I'm asking that we amend this motion. One of the resolutions, and I will read it to you, I wish to replace a sentence where it says, and I'll read you the whole resolution for those in the audience who haven't maybe got the papers. The Council resolves to ask the leaders of the Council to write to the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government to express concern about insufficient provision in the Planning and Infrastructure Bill to preserve local oversight of democracy in the planning process. The following sentence I wish to omit and replace. And to protect and enhance the natural environment in the local planning process. It is an admirable sentence, but I wish to replace it with this, and I would ask members to consider my amendment. And to weaken the existing levels of environmental protection, in particular, removal of requirements to be sure beyond a reasonable scientific doubt that a development would not have a negative impact on a protected site. The reason that we're putting this forward is because, as has already been mentioned, chalk streams, which 85% of which are in the UK, and we're blessed with here in Norfolk, clear, crystal, biodiverse, irreplaceable. This bill offers them no new protections. Ancient woodlands, local wildlife sites, places rich in species, vital for flood prevention, carbon storage and human well-being, they could be destroyed without proper ecological checks. Surveys for bats, dormice, wildflowers, essential evidence-based assessments could be dropped entirely. This isn't progress. This is reckless. We need to be basing our society and our future on science. And so I would ask that this simple amendment to this motion, which is an excellent motion, and I really do welcome it, and I commend it, and I hope that we can pass it unanimously. But I would ask that we accept my amendment, and I hope you all have a chance to read it. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Galvin, to second.
Thank you. Formally second, Ms. Right to speak.
Thank you. Do any members wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Giles.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Lubbock for bringing this motion tonight. The Labour Group is going to vote against this specific amendment, though I agree with much of the spirit of what Councillor Champion said. Firstly, in relation to special areas of conservation, such as the Wensum SAC, the Habitats Regs provides currently that development should not adversely affect the integrity of the site, as opposed to the wording that's put in the amendment. Subparagraph A, paragraph 180 of the NPPF, National Planning Policy Framework, says that planning decisions should protect and enhance biodiversity. And where environmental delivery plans under the legislation have not been put in place, developers will still be required to comply with the habitats regs as they currently exist. Where environmental delivery plans are in place, these will have to comply with the draft local nature recovery strategies, which are currently out for consultation. These environmental delivery plans will replace the current piecemeal site-by-site mitigation from developers with strategic and geographically defined area-specific plans produced and monitored, and I think this is critical, by Natural England, providing a scientific framework to assess potential threats. Natural England will be better placed to implement high-impact habitat projects beyond fragmented site-by-site fixes within the context of the overall improvement test as set out in the legislation. However, we do accept that these environmental delivery plans must be robust, and that is reflected in our later amendment, but unfortunately we will be voting against this specific amendment tonight.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members who wish to discuss this matter? I'm seeing it will be up to the return to Councillor Champion who wish to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I guess it's just, I'm going to be candid here. One of my major frustrations with democracy is the idea that this discussion has been, we talk about debate, but this isn't a debate. I couldn't persuade you of anything because the decision you've all made before you've come in the room. And so, as has already been highlighted tonight, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game which is disappointing because I could have spoken at length, I could have spoken much longer, but it felt like an unnecessary use of my breath because I already know that it's a numbers game, and it's disappointing, just to be honest and frank. So thank you for listening to my proposed amendment. It's disappointing that it will be voted down.
Thank you very much. We will now move to the vote on Councillor Champion's amendment. All those in favour, please. Against? Abstentions? That amendment has been lost. Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, do you accept the proposed amendment from Councillor Giles as tabled?
No, I do not.
Thank you very much. I call upon Councillor Giles to move this amendment.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, in relation to subparagraph A of Resolution 1, the national scheme of delegation will be set in the regulations set by the Secretary of State under the bill. So the bill itself doesn't change the current scheme of delegation for local authorities. So I think it's important to ensure that our views are reflected in the context of those regulations rather than the bill itself. In regards to paragraph B and the proposed amendment I've put forward there, the administration absolutely agrees that the planning system must deliver for nature and that the environmental delivery plans must complement the draft nature recovery strategies as drafted under the Environment Act 2021 to conserve and enhance biodiversity. We've set out that these environmental delivery plans must be robust. We've set out, and on this basis, environmental delivery plans, where introduced, must respect the mitigation hierarchy for conservation measures, broadly prioritising avoidance of damage to biodiversity on site first. That's currently in accordance with subparagraphs B and D of paragraph 180 of the NPPF. Secondly, developers must continue to meet their obligations as set out in the habitats regs, where environmental delivery plans do not exist. Thirdly, measures such as strategic species licensing, as has been used elsewhere for great crested newts, must be grounded in ecological evidence. And fourthly, Natural England must be adequately resourced through the Nature Restoration Levy to monitor and report on the delivery of environmental delivery plans. We hope that this bill can be a win-win for house building and infrastructure and nature. This does rest on these environmental delivery plans being robust. So that's the merits of why we put forward those two amendments here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I call upon the seconder to... Who's second? Is that second? Coach Stone, please speak.
The Lord Mayor reserves the right to speak.
Thank you very much. Are there any members who wish to discuss the issue, the item? No. See anyone? No, thank you very much. Therefore, we shall move to a vote on Councillor Giles' amendment. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you very much. Abstentions? Thank you very much. That's fine. Thank you very much. That amendment has been approved. This now becomes part of the substantive motion. I will ask group spokesman to speak. Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This government's planning and infrastructure bill is key to the government's plan for change to rebuild Britain, critical to achieving economic growth, higher living standards and a more secure future. The bill seeks to combat the supply side challenges to the government's pledges to build 1.5 million homes in this Parliament and deliver a fast track of 150 major infrastructure projects. The bill is vital to making Britain a clean energy superpower, bringing down bills for our residents and securing our energy supply in a more uncertain world. With the amendment that we introduced to subparagraph B of Resolution 1, it sets out that environmental delivery plans must be robust. The bill must be a win-win for house building infrastructure and nature, and that has to be critical if this is going to be a success. I am conscious of the concerns raised by the Norfolk Wildlife Trust and other wildlife trusts in relation to the impact of the bill's effects on Norfolk's globally important chalk streams, including the River Wensum Special Area of Conservation. The government's revised version of the National Planning Policy Framework, as set out later last year, was clear in subparagraph C of paragraph 193 that development resulting in the loss or deterioration of irreplaceable habitats should be refused unless wholly exceptional reasons and a suitable compensation strategy in place. That is hopefully a very high threshold. The NPPF does not provide an exhaustive list of such irreplaceable habitats. There is clearly a very strong argument that chalk streams, given their global importance in Norfolk, fit this defined criteria. This administration broadly welcomes the planning and infrastructure bill. We, however, do encourage the government to engage constructively, both with local government and with the ecology sector, to ensure that the bill is indeed a win-win for both housing and infrastructure and local democracy, and for both housing and infrastructure and our natural environment. So we'll be voting in favour of the bill, of the motion as amended. Thank you.
Councillor Champion, to speak to the motion that is now amended.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would, okay, so I'll be short. I've already said many of the points I wanted to make. I would highlight that over 90,000 people have already contacted their MPs with regards to this the planning and infrastructure bill, voicing their concerns. And it is concerning, and I would encourage anyone who is listening online or in person to do likewise. This isn't because people don't want homes, but this is because rivers, bees, birdsongs, wildlife are vitally important, and we live in an age of an ecological emergency, as our council has acknowledged, our government has acknowledged, and that the watering down of legislation to allow building is worrying. I appreciate many of the things that Councillor Giles has said, and I don't dismiss them, but I feel that we need to make sure that we give this as much due diligence as we can, because we need a living, breathing planet. Otherwise, all the houses in the world won't make an iota of difference. I would suggest that the government needs to remove or completely rework Part 3 of this bill. I would suggest there needs to be a stronger test of overall improvement. Environmental protections are in place before damage begins. We need to protect chalk streams, ancient woodlands. We need to create wild belt designations, corridors to allow for nature recovery and biodiversity. These would be some of my suggestions. But as I said, I shall keep it short so that we can move along, because we've got other things to debate. And I would like to thank the Lib Dems for bringing this motion, in particular Councillor Lubbock. It's very welcome.
Councillor Arthur, do you wish to discuss the substantive motion that's now amended?
No, just say that I'm in support, thank you.
Councillor Lubbock, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, thank you. As we've heard before, this is a numbers game, and we were never going to win this. But I do think that we mustn't let the government off the hook on this one and think it's all going to be okay. Even our 2 MPs, I understand, are split on this. Clive Lewis having voted against it at the recent vote, and Alice MacDonald having voted for it. So there is a great deal of concern. Councillor Giles said that he wants wildlife organisations to engage. Well, the Wildlife Trust said the Wildlife Trust and others have offered constructive solutions that would allow the bill to proceed and achieve its aim to accelerate development whilst maintaining strong environmental protections. We're appalled that these have all been spurned. Nature is in crisis and must not suffer further damage. Much loved places like the New Forest could now be at risk. That's why we're now saying that misleadingly named Nature Recovery section must be removed. Well, they obviously have tried to engage, and they have been spurned. Now, if you can't speak to those organisations that represent the Wildlife Trust, that have thousands and thousands of people involved, the Council for Protection of Rural England, and even the government's own watchdog, if you can't engage with those, if they're the people that are saying, hey, hang on a minute, we've got problems here, I'm afraid I have some concerns still, regardless that this motion is going forward. New research has been published recently that shows that the public think the government is failing nature. It's conducted by Savanta and commissioned by the Wildlife Trust. It says that it finds that less than a third of adult voters believe the government is taking the nature crisis seriously enough. That's 26%. Is listening to local people in planning decisions, that's only 24%, and is achieving success in expanding nature-rich habitats, only 24% of the public. So already the public are not behind the planning and infrastructure bill, because I think they already feel that it can't be a win-win with this bill. It's going to be development, and I fear that is the way it's going to go. But nevertheless, nature doesn't have a voice. We have to speak out. This is the only way we can speak out. We've got a motion that perhaps doesn't fully embrace the feelings of the other three opposition groups, but nevertheless it's going forward. And we'll have to watch this very closely and see what the outcome is. But we will watch it closely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. much. We'll now move to the vote. Sorry, Councillor Giles.
Just to clarify that Clive Lewis didn't vote against the bill in the House of Commons. He did abstain.
Thank you very much. We will now move to the motion, the second motion as amended. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Don't think I need to ask anyone is against or abstain. Thank you very much. Well, the meeting did start a bit late, but we have now come to the 2-hour stage since the beginning of the meeting. Therefore, I will ask members if there is any unopposed business. If business is opposed, there will be a short break of 10 minutes. So can I go to the remaining motions that have not yet been discussed? First of all, is item 7A, getting tough on fly tippers. Is anyone opposing that? Is that opposed? Thank you. Item 7D, support for designated bathing water status at Cowan Tower. Is that opposed?
Well, Mayor, I don't wish to oppose this, and I don't think there will be anyone in the chamber who wishes to oppose it. And I did want to say I've noticed that the Cowan Tower dippers, or some of them, have been sitting here for a very long time observing this meeting, which has gone on a long time, many questions, a lot of detailed debate discussion, not the most exciting way of spending an evening when you could be having a dip in Wednesday, maybe. I'd just like to say I feel confident that this motion will be passed unopposed right now. I'd like to thank them for coming. I hope it's not been too boring for them, but I hope you'll go away happy that your motion will be passed.
Can I suggest that they invite the Admiral of the Winds and the Lord Mayor to a long one Saturday to come along?
Oh, you just stole my joke from me.
Right, that's Lord Mayor, point of order. I'm not sure the chains are.
Item 7E, reforming benefits and support to get Britain working. Is that unopposed? It seems to be unopposed. That is opposed. Item 7F, protecting our right of freedom of speech and expression. Is that unopposed? Unopposed. Thank you very much. We will return after 10 minutes to discuss the stuff on lighting. Thank you very much. The proposal and secretary have agreed to withdraw this motion and we discuss at the next council meeting. Yeah. Thank you. Therefore,